In the earlier Sarga, we beheld the physical splendor of Ayodhya. We saw a city vast in scale, rich in beauty, precise in structure, prosperous in every visible way. Then, in the previous Sarga, our gaze moved from the outer form of Ayodhya to the nature of a people. We heard of a citizenry marked by discipline, harmony, prosperity, and noble conduct. So first, Valmiki Maharshi showed us the city, and then he showed us the people. And now, in this Sarga, he takes us deeper still. For behind a great kingdom, there must also be great minds. Behind harmony, there must be right guidance. Behind a noble people, there must stand men capable of counsel, restraint, insight, and dharma. And so now we are brought into the inner circle of King Daśaratha. We are introduced to the ministers who surround him, the men entrusted with counsel, with governance, justice, diplomacy, intelligence, order, and the welfare of the kingdom. Their names are given, their qualities are described, their discipline is praised, their conduct is revealed. But this is not merely an administrative list. As with everything else in the Ramayana, there is more here than first appears. For this sacred itihasa is not merely a sweet tale, it is a manastattva shastram, a profound study of the human mind. It is also the Vedopabrahmanam, a living unfolding and embodied commentary upon the truths of the Vedas. Every word, every sentence, every character in it can hold a mirror before us, revealing our own tendencies, our own fallacies, our own hidden movements, and in doing so, offering us an opportunity for inner growth. So, as we now listen to the description of Daśaratha's ministers, let us not hear merely of men in royal office. Let us ask, what kind of mind can stand near power and yet remain uncorrupted? What kind of person can act, decide, govern, and influence without becoming tainted by greed, vanity, insecurity, or ambition? This is what this Sarga now begins to reveal. Tasya matya gunairasinna ikshvakoho sumahatmanaha mantragyas chaintigyascha nityam priyahite rataha ashtau babhuvurvirasya tasya matya yashasvinaha shuyaschanuraktascha rajakrutyeshu nityashaha धृष्टिर्जयन्तो विजयः सुराष्ट्रो राष्ट्रवर्धनः अकोपो धर्मपालश्च सुमन्त्रश्चाष्टोमवर्थवत् ऋत्विजौ द्वाभिमतौ तस्यास्तां ऋषिसत्तमौ वसिष्ठो वामदेवश्च मन्त्रिणश्च तथा परे सुयज्ञो अत्यत जाबालिः काश्यपो अत्यत गौतमः मार्कण्डेयस्तु दीर्घायुस्तथा कात्यायनो द्विजः एतैर्ब्रह्मऋषिभिर्नित्यं ऋत्विजस्तस्य पौर्वकाः विद्याविनीतह्रीमन्तः कुशला नियतेन्द्रियाः श्रीमन्तश्च महात्मनः शस्त्रज्ञा दृढविक्रमाः कीर्तिमन्तः प्रणिहिता यथा वचनकारिणः तेजः क्षमा यशः प्राप्ताः स्मितपूर्वाभिभाषिणः क्रोधात् कामार्थहेतोर्वा न ब्रूयरनृतं वचः Teshama viditam kinchit sveshu nasti pareshu va kriyamanam krutam vapi charinapi chikirshitam. Kushala vyavahareshu sahrudeshu parikshitaha praptakalam yatha dandam dharayeyu suteshvapi. Kosha sangrahane yukta balasya cha parigrahe ahitam chapi purusham na hinsyura avidushakam. Virascha nityotsaha rajashastram anushtitaha shuchinam rakshitarascha nityam vishayavasinam. Brahmakshatram mahisantaste kosham sampurayan sutikshna dandaha sampreksha purushasya balabalam. Shuchinam ekabuddhinam sarvesham samprajanatam nasit pureva rashtreva mrushavadi narah kvachit. Kvachinna dushtastatrasit paradara ratirnaraha prashantam sarvamevasit rashtram puravam chatat. Suvasasaha shubeshashchate cha sarve shuchivrataha hitarthascha narendrasya jagrato nayachakshusha. Gurur gunagruhitascha prakhyatascha parakramaihi videshvapi vigyataha sarvato buddhi nishchayaha. Apito gunavantascha nachasan gunavarjitaha sandhi vigraha tattvagyaha prakrutya sampadanvitaha. Mantra samvarane shaktaha shaktaha sukshmasu buddhishu niti shastra visheshagyaha satatam priyavadinaha. Idrushaistair amatyaischa raja Daśaratho anagaha upapanno gunopetair anvashasat vasundharam. Avekshamanascharena prajadharmena rakshayan prajanam palanam kurvanna dharmam parivarjayan. Vishrutas trishu lokeshu vadanyah satya sangaraha satatra purusha vyagraha shashasa prithivim imam. Nadya gacchad dvishthim va tulyam va shatrumatmanaha mitravannata samantaha pratapahanta kantakaha sashasha jagat raja divideva patiryatha. Tair mantribhir mantrihite nivishtair vruto anruktaihi kushalaihi samarthaihi. Saparthivo deeptimuvapa yuktastejo mayer gobhiri voditorkaha. The ministers of that great-souled king of the Ikshvaku lineage were endowed with noble qualities. They were skilled in counsel, perceptive of minds, and were always engaged in what was both pleasing and beneficial. There were 8 ministers of that valiant king, renowned and illustrious. They were pure in conduct, deeply devoted, and were always engaged in the duties of the kingdom. Their names were Drishti, Jayanta, Vijaya, Surashtra, Rashtravarthana, Akopa, Dharmapala, and Sumantra the 8th, a knower of Arthashastra. There were also 2 highly esteemed officiating priests of the king, the foremost amongst the Maharishis, Vasishta and Vamadeva. Along with them were other revered counselors like Suyagnya, Jabali, Kashyapa, Gautama, Markandeya the long-lived, and Katyayana. Along with the Brahma Rishis, there were also a number of other ministers who were long experienced in counsel and were protectors of the people. They were disciplined in knowledge, modest, skilled, and self-controlled. They were prosperous and noble-souled, learned in the scriptures, firm in courage, renowned, attentive, and faithful in carrying out what has to be done. They possessed brilliance, patience, and honor, and spoke with a gentle smile. They would not utter falsehood, neither out of anger, nor for desire, nor for gain. Nothing remained unknown to them, whether within their own realm or beyond it. Whether something was being done, had already been done, or was yet intended to be done, they knew of it through their intelligence network. They were skilled in judicial dealings and proven in relationships. At the proper time, they administered punishment appropriately, even upon their own sons. They were competent in the collection of the treasury and in the management of the army. Even in the case of a hostile person, they did not harm one who was innocent. They were valiant and steady in effort, and they followed the signs of governance. They were always protectors of the righteous among the inhabitants of the realm. Without injuring the pillars of the society, they kept the treasury full. Though strict in punishment, they acted only after carefully considering a person's strength and weakness. Among such pure men, united in understanding and fully discerning, there was no person anywhere in the city or in the kingdom who spoke falsehood. There was no wicked person there, nor any man given to another's wife. All the people in that land lived in peace. They were well clothed, well presented, and all observed pure conduct. They were devoted to the welfare of the king, who remained ever vigilant with the eye of governance. These ministers were skilled in subtle and discreet operations, quick in response, known even in foreign lands, and firm in judgment in every matter. They were fearless, endowed with virtues, and free from vice. They were masters of alliance and conflict, and naturally adorned with excellence. They were capable of guarding counsel, skilled in subtle reasoning, experts in the science of polity, and yet always gentle in speech. Surrounded by such noble and virtuous men, King Daśaratha upheld the earth like Indra himself. Observing through intelligence, he protected his subjects through Dharma, governed them with care, and constantly fostered righteousness. Generous, steadfast in truth, and supreme among men, he ruled this earth. He had no enemy equal or superior to him. He was rich in allies. His feudatories were loyal and submissive, and the thorns of opposition had been subdued by his valor. He ruled the world as Indra rules in heaven. And with such ministers, skilled, far-seeing, and firmly established in beneficial counsel, that king acted always at the proper time. This Sarga is extraordinary. At first glance, it speaks only of ministers, men of governance, men of counsel, men of power. But the Ramayana is never merely descriptive. It is a Manastattva Shastram, a study of the movements of the human mind. And because it reveals truth through story, it becomes Vedopa Brahmanam, a living unfolding of the Vedas. Every character reflects something within us. We recognize jealousy because it exists in us. We recognize pride because it moves within us. We recognize desire, insecurity, ambition, because these are not ancient, they are timeless. So when we hear of Daśaratha's ministers, we are not merely hearing of a royal court. We are being shown something far more subtle. What the mind looks like when it is rooted in Dharma. And what does that mean? To be rooted in Dharma is not merely to follow rules. It is not superficial morality. It is inner alignment. A mind that sees clearly, judges without distortion, acts without agitation, and holds power without being consumed by it. And here, something remarkable is revealed. These men stood near power. They had influence, authority, access, and yet they did not crave to be ahead of others. That absence is not small, it is profound. Because ambition, so often praised, is very often something else. It is the refusal to rest in one's own fullness. It is comparison, wearing the clothing of purpose. It is the urge to become greater instead of becoming true. But the Upanishads declare something else entirely different. Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. That is full, this is full. From fullness, fullness arises. Nothing really begins from lack. You, in your deepest nature, are not incomplete. And when a person acts from that inner fullness, action simply remains. Excellence remains. Responsibility remains. But the fever disappears. That is why the Bhagavad Gita says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha stita pragyastadochate. The one who is content in the self is steady. Such a man is known to be a stita pragya. Not inactive, not withdrawn, but unshaken. And that is what these ministers embody. Because they were inwardly ordered, their speech remained pure. Because they were free of greed, their justice remained clear. Because they did not seek themselves through power, power remained safe in their hands. And this purity did not remain confined to the core. It flowed downward, into the people, into the culture, into the very fabric of Ayodhya. And so, the citizens we saw and the ministers we now see are not separate stories, they are one, a single living order. And then the Ramayana turns towards us, quietly but unmistakably. Because each one of us holds a kingdom within. And in that kingdom too, there are ministers. Certain impulses advise us. certain tendencies shape our decisions. So we must ask, who are the ministers in our own Ayodhya? Is ambition seated there? Is comparison whispering? Is insecurity guiding us? Or are we governed by clarity, restraint, truth, and inner fullness? Because only one kind of mind can be trusted with power. A mind that no longer seeks completion through comparison or domination. A mind that has discovered something of its own wholeness. That is fit to govern. And that is part of why Ayodhya was Ayodhya.